Thanks for having me, Grant.
So, you look at what GM went through. They've now acknowledged that they knew about this in 2001. Do you think criminal charges could be filed in a case like this?
Well, there's a criminal investigation going on. You sort of have to look at where the government has gone in terms of criminal charges in these types of investigations. And the best example is, all of the mortgage fraud stuff that went on, and you didn't see a whole lot of criminal investigations or criminal charges there. I'd be surprised ultimately if you come out with criminal charges, but I do think you're going to see serious civil consequences.
My theory is that if it comes out that executives knew, and now they're saying it was 57 cents to fix this part in the ignition switch. And I guess the problem was under a certain amount of weight, the ignition switch would cut the car off, which could be a huge problem if you're in the middle of driving someplace. That it's 57 cents, and people have died over this. How do you defend somebody like that in court?
Well, you'd be surprised at how vigorous the defenses will be here. What they'll do is blame it on low-level employees that supposedly didn't tell anybody and so on and so forth. But this is a common story throughout GM's history. I mean, this is not the first time that they've done something like this over a part, that costs $1 or a ingredient in a particular type of product they were making. So this is, despite all of the shock that they are professing, it's something that has gone on throughout GM's history, and this is just another example of it.
Which is sad because people have died over it. And so
it makes you crazy. It makes you crazy.
It does. So here they've claimed bankruptcy in 2009, and now they're operating under the, quote, new GM. What liability does the new GM have for any of this stuff that happened before 2009?
Yeah, that's going to be an issue that's at the heart of a bunch of litigation. So the short, good lawyer answer is, I'm not sure yet. The longer answer is, one of the things that you have to do when you go into bankruptcy is admit what all of your liabilities are. And liabilities don't just mean cash debt. It means, could we get sued for X, Y, and Z? Do we have a bad product out there and so forth? And the fact that they knew, as you say, and I agree with you, they did know, long before the bankruptcy and didn't disclose it to the bankruptcy court could be a real problem for them. There's already a lawsuit pending in the back in the bankruptcy court where the judge dismissed their product liabilities for all the pre-bankruptcy stuff, and that judge could very well lift the product's liability stay that flowed out of that bankruptcy proceeding. Which would open them up to all of the liability, presumably for these recalls and possibly for other things.
All right. So you're a Dallas trial attorney, and we're talking with Trey Branham. I want you to listen to CEO Mary Barra. This is yesterday in front of a House panel, and tell me if you would have advised your client, but with all of these issues going on, to make this statement.
Today's GM will do the right thing. This begins with my sincere apologies to everyone who's been affected by this recall, especially to the families and friends of those who lost lives or were injured.
All right, so Trey, she's basically admitted that, yes, GM is responsible, and she's apologized. Do you even need to have a trial now?
Well, yeah, you'll be surprised at the creativity of the defense lawyers, but I agree that it is going to be a huge problem, and that statement will be played in every trial across the country in which one of these recall issues goes before a jury. So it's a huge problem for them. Yeah, they'll defend the cases.
I have to believe that she had, and she was prepped before she went before Congress. Now, they've taken responsibility, and I know they hired this gentleman, Kenneth Feinberg, who's very well respected. He helped handle the BP oil spill. He helped handle the mass shootings in Aurora, Colorado, and Virginia Tech. They've hired him on to see how they can compensate victims. Do you think that's a good move on their part?
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got huge public relations and candidly, shareholder issues and dealer issues. I mean, if you go into a GM dealer today, do you think the customers are in there talking about what new car to buy or whether or not this car is going to be subject to recall? I mean, it's a real problem for the dealers. It's a real problem for GM, and so they've got to get out ahead of it as much as they possibly can, in order to fix the economic damage to the company. The interesting thing to me is what do they mean by doing the right thing? GM, at least so far, is saying, yeah, for all of the recall post-bankruptcy, we'll do the right thing. But none of them are offering to step up to the plate for the pre-bankruptcy stuff because legally, at least right now, they're not liable for that, and they're not offering to step up to the plate for that. And so I guess it sort of depends on what you mean by do the right thing.
And what is hard for most people to fathom is GM actually does have a responsibility to its shareholders, the new GM now. So, the moral obligations and the financial obligations are going to conflict, and they have some tough decisions to make here.
You bet.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Trey Branham, Dallas trial attorney. As always, thanks for coming on the Stinchfield Report.
Thanks, Grant.